Hello and welcome to my easy to understand guide to Black Mirror and industry. This video is going to be particularly relevant for you if you are studying Eduqas A-Level Media Studies, as it appears on that specification for exams from 2024 onwards. Charlie Brooker is the creator and writer of Black Mirror. He's quite a cynical kind of comic producer and writer, and he's known for creating things that are quite dark and often focus on quite postmodern ideas about technology and the future. He's made several programmes before that have been very successful, including things like Dead Set and Newswipe. So Charlie Brooker himself, as being involved in the show, actually brings in some pre-sold audiences. Whilst the set episode of Black Mirror is currently season 3, episode 4, the series obviously began long before that, and when it first started, it was on Channel 4. Those first two series were known for pushing the boundaries and created quite a large pre-sold audience and fan base of the show. Brooker's production company, Zeppotron, was the company that was involved in producing the show for Endemol at the time, and it was available in 80 countries. Because it's an anthology series where every episode is about a different set of characters and a different narrative, a different story, it meant that they couldn't reuse the set or even the cast really from episode to episode. So that increased the budget. Every episode had to have a new set, new cast, new costumes, etc. So that did mean that the show has to have quite a high budget. When Channel 4 and Endemol basically decided that it was very difficult to continue to fund the show, they reached out to other companies to see if they would fund them. So they ended up getting several companies interested, including Netflix, AMC, Sci-Fi Channel and HBO. So there were a lot of other companies who could see the potential of Black Mirror as a series and wanted to continue it. Channel 4 simply couldn't compete with the budgets that these programmes and these other channels were able to offer. Channel 4 is a not-for-profit company, so they don't have huge budgets. Although they operate on a commercial basis in that they have adverts on their channel, all of that money just goes back into funding programmes, and so they don't have a massive stash of money somewhere to put into budgets for new programming, and so they couldn't compete with these other companies that were offering much higher budgets, and that's why in the end Endemol decided to sell the franchise to Netflix, who were offering a very high figure. And that meant that Netflix took over in terms of the people who funded and helped to produce the show, and this basically saved the series for audiences. The reason that they were successful against other companies who had also bid to try and take over and buy out the show was because they were offering a higher budget than other companies per episode. And so Charlie Brooker decided to go with them. The higher budget meant that they could do more interesting things with each series. So for Series 3, they released 6 episodes simultaneously on Netflix, and this reflects the growing culture and desire for things like binge-watching series. As well as commissioning Series 3, Netflix also commissioned Series 4 and 5, as well as a standalone spin-off interactive film called Bandersnatch. The high budget meant that Series 3, in particular the set episode that you're studying, San Junipero, had a very high budget. It was set in California, but it was filmed in London and South Africa because that was just easier for them. It had American actors in it. It had a number of visual effects in it. There were lots of 80s songs that would have cost money to get the rights to, and it obviously also involved a huge amount of period costume, hair, makeup, etc. The show had a big reputation for controversial narratives. For example, one of the previous episodes had focused around the story about the Prime Minister having sex with a pig on national television. So they'd really been known for pushing the boundaries and doing things that other programmes probably wouldn't. The set episode San Junipero is the first one that was written for Netflix, even though it's episode 4 in the series. And so it has a very different tone to some of the previous Black Mirror episodes from previous series. It was much more kind of laid back and Americanized than some of the more kind of darker, grittier British content that had been in the first couple of series, and that reflects that American funding from Netflix. However, Charlie Brooker did make an attempt not to Americanise the products too much. So he did make an effort with later episodes not to continue to set them all in America or all with American actors. They obviously had a range of marketing materials, including teasers, trailers on the YouTube channel and on the Netflix social media as well. They had posters. They also obviously used Netflix suggested content on the Netflix streaming site to promote the show to people who may like it. The series ended up with a board game called Nosedive. There was also a web game online too to engage audiences that liked more active content. The soundtracks to the episodes were available online as well on Spotify. And actually for the set episode of San Junipero, there is a 42 track Spotify playlist available for audiences to go through because there's so much music from the 80s in the episode. There's also a book available as merchandise called Inside Black Mirror, which is a great way of increasing your revenue by targeting fans who want to know more about the show. They also released a Black Mirror maze at Thorpe Park, which is a great way of kind of interesting new audiences and perhaps younger audiences as well. A clip was also released with another Netflix original show, Orange is the New Black, where they did an Orange is the New Black Mirror crossover clip as a kind of comedy value. And that was a great way of promoting the kind of quite dark, gritty Black Mirror to people who liked the already existing, successful, dark, gritty Orange is the New Black. Because Netflix is actually streamed into the UK from outside of England, it means that they are not governed by Ofcom, which regulates traditional TV channels. And that means that there is very little regulation for the content that they have on their streaming site. And so that's why some of the programmes on Netflix can be much more controversial and push the boundaries in a way that programmes on places like the BBC and Channel 4 could just never get away with. And that explains why, even though the content on the original Channel 4 2 series were already controversial, the content is pushed even further in some of the later Netflix series. So for example, in the set episode, there's lots of ideas and themes around things like euthanasia. There's scenes within a BDSM club. So some quite controversial content, and that continues in other episodes as well. So that's my easy to understand guide to Black Mirror and industry. Don't forget to check out my channel for other content that's going to be relevant for you. And if you would like a video that I don't already have, leave a little comment below and I'll see what I can do.